Hi, and welcome to our weekly recording that we normally release. I hope you guys are well and you've been trying to do some form of fitness. You've been keeping fit by running, skipping, Zumba, brisk walking, aerobics, high intensive interval training, anything to get your body moving. Remember, your body is the temple of God, and you've got to do whatever you can to make sure you keep it ticking. And also at the same time, also make sure you're watching your diet so you get the right balance between both. Um, for me, I've been extremely busy. As you all know, I ran the London Marathon. And guess what? I've got my medal. Yay! 26 miles. I earned it. So I'm doing my bit to look after my body, which is God's temple. I also have an half marathon, the New York Liberty Half Marathon, which is on the 1st of November. And I'm doing that to raise funds for a charity called Blessed to Impact. They're doing great work in the rural villages in Nigeria where people are forgotten and have been totally abandoned, widows and orphans. And they're doing a lot to finance and to feed them and to help to educate them. So that's what I'm doing a half marathon on the 1st of November for. So I'm just training, ramping up the miles. Well, as you know, I always bring a special guest, and this man is a good friend of mine. We've known each other for years. But even though I've been known him for so many years, he's extremely busy. It's been so difficult to get him. But by the grace of God, I finally was able to get him to come on our channel. Now, Dr. Yemi Aino is a sleep specialist and also specializes in family medicine and psychiatry, studied in the UK and the US. As you can see, he's dressed, he's already started his day, but I was able to get him to come to our channel. We're going to be covering a very, very, very important topic. And the topic we're going to be covering is the importance of sleep in our health and fitness. How sleep has an impact in our health and our fitness as individuals. It's an area that people take for granted and they do not know a lot about it. But guess what? This interview is going to open your eyes and it's going to help you to understand how it all hangs together, because they're all different things that you need to do to make sure you're healthy and you're fit. So thank you so much, Dr. Yemi Aino, for coming to this channel. Like I said, I know you're very busy, but it's so good to eventually get you. Thank you so much. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much, Bayo. Thank you for having me on your show, on your channel, and I thank you for the good work you've been doing. I'm privileged to share this platform with you to educating your members on sleep and its impact on health. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So we're going to dive right straight into the questions. Some very good questions that would help us to understand how sleep has an impact and its relevance to our health. So this is an area that you're an expert in. So we're speaking to the guru here. And my very first question is, what is sleep and what happens when you sleep? People think they know what sleep is, but I guess, as you're the expert, you enlighten us, because a lot of people just think it's just, hitting your head on the pillow and just, snoring or whatever it is. But what is sleep and what happens when we sleep?
Well, that's actually a very important question, and I think it's a question that really has stumped both scientists, philosophers, and thinkers for centuries now. It wasn't really until the last century that understanding, of sleep began to be more available due to testing and some electrophysiological measurements. Really, sleep is actually very complex because it's really not one thing that is happening. We all experience sleep as, being drowsy, heavy eyelids. Then the next moment you're awake in the morning and there's hours have passed without not knowing what has really happened. Actually, sleep really is a complex interplay of various parts of the brain. what really happens is, and I'm going to try to simplify this really, is the brain, as you know, is that supercomputer. And it does several things at once. It regulates your appetite, your breathing, your heart rhythm, your desires, your thoughts, your moods, emotions. The brain does all that. Is that supercomputer. So what really happens with sleeping is that one, it's the brain works with environment. So I want to start from there. It works with environment. So there are triggers. There are certain triggers that the brain utilizes to figure out when sleep should occur. So one of the more powerful triggers will be light. So, you know, we have an internal clock, of course, in the brain, and light is a very powerful stimulus to indicating when we go to sleep and when we wake. So as the sun, and I'm just going to start from that, as it begins to get towards dusk and the sun begins to recede, certain the brain picks that up. There are some very sensitive cells at the back of our eyes that transmits to the back of the brain, telling us that it's beginning to get darker, and some hormonal and neural mechanisms get activated, and certain hormones are produced. One of the better known ones will be melatonin, right? So melatonin begins to get secreted from late evening, and it begins to increase towards later into the night. So that's one way, and as that begins to happen, other areas of the brain begin to get activated. Now, some other parts of the brain begins to be, there's also withdrawal of stimulus that keeps us awake. So we have wake promoting cells in the brain. And when those wake promoting cells, the brakes are pressed, as it were, we press the brakes on the wake promoting neurons in the brain. So the stimulus for wakefulness begins to recede. And then the inhibitory cells, begin to be more prominent. So there's a complex interplay of several things. It's not just one thing, which is why sleep disorders are sometimes very hard to treat sometimes, or to even understand, because several things are going on at once. Now, one other thing I would mention before I stop is that we also have what's called a sleep pressure. So during the daytime, once you wake, you're going about your day. Now you have a sleep pressure that begins to build. It builds from the time you wake, and the pressure builds and builds and builds. So towards the end of the day, that's when you're getting tired. You've done a hard day's work. So there's we call it the sleep pressure. So that pressure also increases the likelihood that you're going to fall asleep, which is why when people, exercise or do labor, they tend to get tired compared to someone who just sits throughout the day, not doing a lot of activity. They are more likely not to have a lot of sleep pressure, and come bedtime, they don't have that for that pressure going into sleep. So that's in a simplified way what happens to make sleep likely. So, and of course, we all understand that when sleep happens, you begin to have heaviness of the eyelids, begin to get drowsy. Your clarity, or what we call the sensorium, begins to get, it begins to fade. Then, of course, when sleep happens, you don't see, you don't hear, your, arousal to stimuli is less. Then, of course, sleep happens. So it's a complex interplay of neuronal and hormonal activity.
So when you actually sleep, you, as you rightfully said, all those your different sensors, like your seeing, your hearing, your smell, and all that, is at the lower end, or does it stop completely? Do you become totally inactive, or how does that? What exactly happens at that point?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's actually it's all I think it's all suppressed or inhibited, as
Okay.
sleep is a temporary it's a temporary loss of consciousness really. All your senses is if you look at your computer, you can either put your computer in hibernate mode, sleep mode,
Yes,
or
yes,
you
yes,
can shut down. So you know that when the
yes.
computer is in the sleep mode or hibernate mode, some programs are still working behind the scenes. The computer is using less
Mm-hmm.
battery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes, yes,
so
yes.
if you want to use an analogy, so of course, if I talk to you in a low voice, you probably wouldn't hear me when you're sleeping. If I yell your name, you're likely to get out of sleep, and that's because it's not dead. It's just
Yes.
it's tuned way down.
It's just
But
like tuned way down. Yeah.
yeah, but with the right enough stimuli, you can get things going again.
Okay, fantastic. Excellent. Thank you so much for that. That's really enlightening. I'm just going to quickly move on to the next question, which is what exactly is the role of sleep as part of a healthy lifestyle? Does it have any role to play as part of a healthy lifestyle, or is it just? I've heard someone say that if he had his way, he would. This is some manager at my principal. He said if he had his way, that he wouldn't sleep at all. He would just walk 24. He said he feels sleep is a waste of time. So, what is the role of sleep as part of a healthy lifestyle, and is it essential for a healthy lifestyle?
Yes, that notion is I mean that notion is it's it's kind of common with uh, people who are kind of driven. Now we have a
Yes.
24-hour society. There's a blur between daytime and nighttime. We have 24-hour TV. There's uh, we all geared towards higher and higher productivity, and the more you
Mm,
produce, the more value you have in society. But we have
mm,
to realize that it's sleep is a body function. So you can't go without eating, you can't go without drinking, you can't go without breathing, and you can't go without sleeping.
sleeping.
Um,
Yeah.
I, I think it's just it's now it's a cultural norm for people to show their high ability of productivity by telling you how little they sleep, and it's a kind of a badge of
Yeah.
honor that they're kind of strong and they're motivated. But really,
Mm,
there's been lots and lots of studies from areas not just in sports performance to learning to areas or tests of attention, where it is shown that sleep deprivation actually makes you ineffective. So if you want to look at how, again, if I'm going to use an analogy of
mm,
the computer, is when you're sleeping, that's when the brain does a lot of its work. It's able to shut down certain aspects that is not necessary, and
mm.
use that energy to do a lot of maintenance and repair. We do know
Wow.
that you know it is not is in the at least I remember when I was in the UK. A lot of night when they do construction of the roads and all that or repair, it tends to happen at night when everybody is sleeping.
Yes,
um,
yes,
and for
yes,
good reason.
yes.
There's less traffic, there's less intrusion of people's days, and the workmen come out and fix the road, and the next morning it's like, oh my goodness, what happened to this pothole? It's already gone. And I think
Wow.
it's the same with the brain. The brain gets rid of a lot of
Mm,
waste products in the brain, because the brain also produces toxins. They're fumes, as it were, gas fumes from the brain. And at nighttime, when you're sleeping, or whenever you're sleeping, the brain, through there's a lymphatic system that the brain kind of gets rid of this toxin. And in fact, it's been
wow.
it's been thought that the ineffective waste removal, as it were, or all this, has been linked to memory dysfunction and Alzheimer's disease uh, way down the line. So we want to do everything that would help our brain function optimally. So I would say body and tissue restoration is is one. So we need that. There we also know that if the brain doesn't get adequate sleep, um, you're more likely not to produce cytokines. Now, cytokines and these are immune factors, that the body produces to fight infection.
Wow.
There's been research suggesting that you're more likely to have more viral illnesses if you're sleep deprived. If so which means that
Wow. Amazing.
at nighttime when the cytokines are being produced, if you disrupt that, the body's innate ability to fight infection is affected. Also, other things that
Wow.
our brains, especially for people who do office work or administrative kind of work, you need your memory. You're listening to stuff throughout the day. You're getting a lot of information during the daytime, and you're interacting with your clients, your customers. When you go to sleep, all this information has to be filed properly. It's just like when you put in a flash drive in your computer, they always ask you not to yank it out of the computer, that you have to
Yes,
kind of
yes,
eject. All these
yes.
things is such that it makes the computer work well. It makes the system not to be disrupted. If
Yeah.
you if you don't sleep, or you are sleep deprived, all these files, all this information that has to be stored away will not happen in an appropriate fashion. So we do know that short-term memory has to be converted to long-term memory, and we know that if this tends to happen a lot, we call it consolidation of memory. It happens when you sleep. So
Wow.
when you're bombarding your brain with information, input, and there is no chance for the information to be stored and appropriately, so that you can retrieve this information later, then you're doing yourself a disservice. Now, we do know that there are people, however, who have a genetic predisposition to having less sleep. There's some people, we call them short sleepers. They are naturally predisposed to sleeping about 6 hours, and they can function. They're fully alert. They are fully. They feel refreshed. They function as well as someone who's sleeping 7 to 8 hours at nighttime. So we have some people like that who, and that is genetically determined, but not everyone is that way. We also know that people
Yes.
who tend to sleep for less than 6 hours, we know it's not compatible or consistent with healthy and optimal health. We know that people who tend to sleep less than 6 hours a night consistently are likely to live shorter lifespans than people who sleep
Wow.
regularly. We also know that people who have sleep deprivation are higher risk of dementias as they age. We know that people who have less sleep duration or sleep deprivation are more likely to have glucose issues, glucose metabolism issues, increasing their risk of having diabetes. We also know
Wow.
that. So it's quite a lot of uh, um, uh, the impact is a
It's
lot. So,
vast.
and I think
Yes, quite vast.
people are becoming more and more aware of how sleep impacts the body. We know that elite
Yeah.
athletes, they're sure to get their sleep, adequate amounts of sleep, because one, they have more wear and tear on their body. There's a lot of mental stress. There's a lot of physical stress. The body has to
Mm.
regenerate even at a faster pace because they have to
Mm.
perform. Uh, and
Yes.
and and if they if they're short on sleep, maybe because of training or training at the wrong time, they then put themselves in an artificial sleep deprivation state. So, say
Mm.
an
Wow.
athlete wakes up, he has to get his run in, or he has to, and he wakes up about 4 a.m. to do that training, that high intensity training, or they have to do that training late at night or late in the evening. When they do that and they begin to cut short their sleep duration, and they do this for maybe for 3, 4, 5 months, they begin to reap the negative, the negative reward, benefits
Yeah.
of sleep deprivation. We do know that the average sleep duration really is about 7.5 to 8 hours. People who are doing a lot of exercise, high intensity exercises, they probably need to sleep a little bit more, and that's just because they need to recover. They need to recover from such stresses on their bodies.
Wow, that's just mind-boggling. It's very, very, it's an eye-opener, and I'm so grateful for the way you really broke that down. So I'm going to quickly move on to the next question, which kind of ties with the first one, but maybe we might just touch on some other areas there. It says, my next question is, how does sleep impact physical and mental performance? I know you talked a little bit about that, but maybe you could just cover bits that you didn't cover.
Okay, yes. I probably can talk about some other areas. So if I start with mental performance, I guess one is I've spoken about the impacts on memory. Other aspects will be impacts on your problem-solving abilities and innovative thinking. We do know that from a mental performance, mental standpoint, those are one of the things that you will have to consider. I'm sure you've heard of the saying when people say, you know what, let me sleep on that. I do that a lot. If I have something that I'm thinking about, I've thought about it during the daytime, thought about it. Once I sleep and I wake up, I usually know what I want to do. Now, I just have, I'm more assured in my decision. I just feel that it's kind of makes sense to me because I've slept on it, right? I slept on it. So I think there's truth to that when we do that, because I guess we marshal the power of sleep to putting things in place as with when we do sleep. So I say innovative thinking, problem solving abilities probably enhanced, as well as the transference of short-term memories to long-term memories. Also the concentration and focus, because your attention is necessary. A good example is when you, I think there was a study done with people who throw darts, and they found that when they get sleep deprived, their accuracy was really off. In fact, it was said that there was a study with tennis players, the accuracy reduced by about 53% when they had about 5 hours of sleep on a consistent basis. I take that back. 1 hour, one night of sleep of about 5 hours or so, their accuracy with their tennis playing reduced by 50%. So it just shows that the brain is not at its optimum when we are sleep deprived. So on the mental side. Yeah. Another will be on the physical aspects, though. There's something called ghrelin, and I don't know. There's something called ghrelin. Ghrelin is actually a hormone produced by the stomach. Now, when it makes you hungry. When you're sleep deprived, you're more likely to have higher levels of ghrelin, which also increases your levels of hunger, right? So you're more likely to want to snack and reach out for stuff.
Seriously, wow.
And especially for people who do night shift, they probably tend to feel this more, because they're working against their natural drives to sleep at nighttime. They're doing it the opposite. So they tend to reach out for more high calorie, refined sugar type deal to kind of help them, because they just feel hungry. And there's another hormone called neurohormone that's produced by fat. It's called leptin, and leptin is actually that hormone that makes you not want to eat. and that also is suppressed with sleep deprivation.
Wow.
So
Wow. Wow.
that's another impact that you could have with sleep deprivation on hormones, increasing the risk of obesity, because that's what that would lead
Yes.
to, and in
Yes.
turn it leads to diabetes. So
Mm.
yeah. So in general, talking about performance, it's I think it's agreed in people who really study this area that sleep deprivation actually can be an independent risk of independent risk for success in teams. There was a study done on some Brazilian elite athletes, and they noticed that one, when they spoke to them and they asked them about their sleep, most of them felt they slept very well. They thought their sleep was normal, was okay.
Mhm.
But when this was
Mhm.
measured using sleep journals and some sleep tracking devices, they actually found out that they didn't really sleep as well. So it actually seems that most athletes tend to underreport or may not be aware of um, how little um, their sleep is, and also may
Yeah.
be likely not to seek out help for
Yeah.
their sleeping. And it's also been shown that if when a team does well, it's
Mm.
also probably likely that the sleep duration of that team is higher than their peers.
Fantastic. That's going to quickly lead me to the last question for this session, which is sleep and the athlete. So, someone like me, for example, I do a lot of running. There are people who do brisk walking. Anyone who does any form of fitness, who does competitions. What's the impact? I think you did cover that, but maybe just in a nutshell, you could just say what impact has sleep got on an athlete, the performance. You talked about tennis. You talked about I don't know, you used another sport as well, where you said if you don't have enough, we've just talked about the Brazilian sportsmen and women. So, what impact has that got, just in a nutshell, on on athletes?
Well, I think the way the athlete should consider sleep as important as they will consider their nutrition. Most athletes
Excellent.
would are they're very aware, in tune with feeding. They're in tune that
Mm,
if they eat certain types of food, it makes them either not function well or makes them gain weight, or they don't just feel their best. They're in tune
mm.
to that. That's just because that's common. It's commonly known,
Yes,
I should say.
yes.
Now, I think with uh, the smart athlete would consider sleep as a tool to better performance.
Yes,
Athletes
absolutely.
should aim to have um, adequate sleep, have adequate sleep, healthy sleep hygiene, which of course will include having a regular sleep wake pattern. Once it's bedtime, it's bedtime. Avoiding things that could disrupt your sleep, whether it's alcohol or whether it's use of certain medications. Also, being able to time your exercises. So,
Mm,
you know, some people, for whatever reason, if you are going to wake up early in the morning to sleep, then make sure that you have adequate amount in terms of duration. So you
mm,
can't shortchange yourself by saying, you have a meet in 3 or 4 months, and you're consistently having about 6 hours of sleep every night, which is probably shorter than what you would do in an off season.
mhm,
So
mhm.
it puts you under more your system under more stress, because you you
Yes,
you actually you have a sleep debt. So if your
yes.
normal amount of sleep is 7.5 hours, 8 hours, and you're doing, you're having during your training season, you're about 6.5 hours, then you have about an hour and a half sleep debt that that is cumulative, that
Piles up, yeah.
carries over and
Mhm.
over and over. Then your cells and your body begins to will know that, and
Yes.
I've mentioned some other other of the impacts that it can have
Yes, yes,
to
yes.
the body. So my conclusion is that you know that you need to repair, you need to recharge. Sleep is going to make you get there. Sleep is going to make you produce adequate amounts of growth hormone at night. Sleep depression also increases your stress hormones, right? So
Yes.
we know that your cortisol, that is, your cortisol is a wake promoting hormone, but we know that it also breaks down.
Mm,
It can also break down stuff as well.
mm,
You want hormones or neurotransmitters that build. So
yeah.
you really should not overly expose yourself to stress hormones.
Mm,
That you should also allow yourself to have the adequate cycling of REM sleep, non-REM sleep, so that you can have this hormone and growth hormone pulses throughout the night that helps with
mm.
tissue regeneration as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for answering all these questions. It really, I've been so enlightened by it. There's so many things that I didn't realize. I know I tend to sleep a lot. I get a lot of rest because I wake up early. I go to bed early because most of my long runs are early in the morning. So I just do that as a practice because just commonsensical. I just feel, well, if you're going to, do all that running, you need to be well rested. But you've now made it clear why these things are, this is why it's essential. And covering so many areas, weight gain, the hormone that gets secreted because you're not getting the sleep that you need, the rest that you need. I'm sure a lot of people are going to find this very beneficial. I just really want to thank you for your time, for enlightening us about all these topics. You've heard from the experts' mouth, guys. Spirit Runners UK is your one-stop shop for everything health and fitness. We dealt with sleep and the importance of sleep in terms of our health. Now you've heard it. This is the first part. We have a second part that we're going to do that we cover because there's still other areas that he is still going to talk about. But this is the first part, and I hope you'll find this, and I'm sure you will find this video very beneficial. Please don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to click on the like button. Don't forget to send these videos to your friends and family and spread the word. You will get a lot from this, and this will change your lifestyle, make you more healthy and more fit so that you may live a longer, fuller life, and you might be able to do what God has proposed for you to do. Thank you so much for viewing. Thank you so much, Dr. Yemi, I know, for the time that you spent talking about all these topics. We'll see you in the next video. God bless you guys. And you remember what I always say, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Never give up, stay consistent, and just get the job done. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you all. See you in the next video. Bye. So,